Hey MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology, and I am here for another quick MMT chat. My guest today is Don Smith, who has spoken to me a lot over the years. We've had a lot of conversations just about the future of mold making. So I wanted to get him on one of these chats to kind of break that down. So Don is the North American Senior Tooling Engineer for Scholle IPN in Northlake, Illinois. And he is one of MoldMaking Technology's newest editorial advisory board members. And I introduced him back in May. If you're interested, you can go to MoldMakingTechnology.com and look at the May issue, and you can find out a little bit more about Don. They're also very focused on lean, like lean manufacturing. You're certified lean black belt, Six Sigma. So can you talk a little bit about why you believe that is becoming even more important today, especially as the industry works through COVID-19, like it's all about efficiencies, right? So that if any time in my lifetime with the brand, the past 20 some years, it is like very important now. Like if you're not going to survive through this crisis, if you're not more efficient in putting certain principles in play. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
Right. Well, the whole process starts with the overview. A lean organization comes from the top down, right? So basically, all these little objectives cascade down through all the different departments, and you create your own individual objectives. So what does that mean? That means that, okay, for me, for example, for North American tooling, transitioning into global tooling, is to come up with the plan. How are we going to do these things? And so that sets like three things up for me that I will be measured on as far as my performance. So it's that value stream map that goes into play.
Yes.
And, right. And that whole mapping process, so that everybody knows. It's no different. I have used this analogy for a long time. It's no different than from a football team. Everybody gets the playbook, right? The guy that wrote the playbook, right? The guy that owns the team, he helped write it or whatever, and then he hires people, managers, in order to disseminate that playbook, and then coaches to make sure that the players understand that playbook. It's the same thing.
It is.
It's no different. So whether you're a coach, a manager, or blah, 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 you need to know your role, right? And then it's a matter of execution. So here's what we have planned for you. This is what you need to do. And what happens if they're playing football and the tackle misses his block? Well, right? No execution.
Yeah.
Right? A loss or whatever. Same thing. So what do you look back and the same thing that they do in football after the game? That's why a post-tool analysis for a tool shop or a post-project review for an OEM is important, because what did we do wrong, or not necessarily what did we do wrong, what could we have done better, right?
Yes.
And the most important part about all of that is understanding what you did well, because now that turns into a best practice. Now you can take that best practice and apply it to different aspects of the business. So that's really where lean comes in, is identifying these principles of continuous improvement, of analysis, again, data, finding out. And it's not a matter like in the old days where we're pointing fingers, oh, you did this and you messed this.
Right. It's not about that.
It's not about that. It's finding a root cause. What happened? I know, in my experience in running businesses and managing people, 9 times out of 10, it's probably my fault that they didn't understand what the requirement, because I didn't communicate it properly.
Yeah, communication, exactly.
I didn't communicate it, or they didn't understand. I might have said it, and they were listening, and here's the key word: they didn't comprehend it, right?
Yeah.
So, did you understand what I said? Yeah.
No,
Repeat what I said. Well, you said this, okay. But then they turn around and walk away. I didn't comprehend it, right?
Yeah.
So that's usually on me, because I'm not communicating properly.
Yeah. Well, and I can go even a little deeper than that. Like you're probably now talking too. You have to know how to communicate to individuals. There's that whole disc profiling and emotional intelligence. Like we could go down a rabbit hole with this, because that's all part of that culture. Like you can't assume everyone that you can communicate the same way to everyone in your shop either. for them to actually really listen and understand what you're saying.
Right, right. So that becomes, that's where the training and people and understanding people and really understanding how people learn comes into. And that, one of your questions was, teaching. That's really,
that's the next thing. Teaching.
That's really what I learned from being an instructor and a teacher, was people learn in different ways, and you have to adapt to how people learn, or create or create something that people will understand and feel free to ask you a question, right? This is, I still remember, this is 1980s, 1985 when I first started teaching. And I still remember the first couple of years, and we'd be doing trig problems, right? Because we didn't have computers back then. Everybody had to figure out your trig, your calculator.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Oh, geez, what is that? And so we would be doing some, practical problems in class, and so I'd, present the problem, and they would come back up, and he would say, "What is this the answer?" I'll tell you if it's the answer or not. It's not, right? And so this went on, everybody, is this the answer? Is this the answer? Is this it? No. So what I came up with was this. Here's the problem. Here's the answer. How do you get it?
How do you get there?
Yep. So now you know immediately, if you go through the whole process, and you don't come up with that answer, you did something wrong.
Yes.
Check your work. Right?
Yes.
That's where you learn. You don't learn to answers. You don't necessarily learn by success all the time. You learn by failure.
Yeah, we were just talking about that this week. Like, if you're not making mistakes and failing, you're not learning. That's the best way to learn, is to just try something and do it wrong and then fix it. I like what you said earlier too, when you're talking about lean, just in terms of, it's not always focusing on the negative, who did or what went wrong. You also have to focus on what you did right and make that a best practice. I think that's a really key point. You've got to focus on the good too, not just the bad.
Not the negative. And that's what's going to create the motivation for the people when they see numbers, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like I was saying before, when we come up with, all the different hours and targets that I would, okay, let's see if we can beat this. And when they beat it, it's like, man, yeah, we're doing great. It's great.
Right.
It's motivation, right? Again,
yes,
just like football team. We did our play, we executed, we scored, we win the game.
Yeah, we win the game.
Everybody's motivated, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really the whole thing when you're dealing with people with, how do you motivate them to be successful? It's not about the money. It's not about the money. Most people don't.
Do you find there's a correlation between, because I know you have this passion for teaching, and I know firsthand that you definitely have a way with words when it comes to explaining concepts. So can you talk a little bit about your teaching history, and how has that translated into what you do within a shop environment?
I started, again, like I said, 1971. My original passion or goal was to become an industrial arts teacher. So about 1985, after I went through the apprenticeship and I was working at Schultz, and our local association, back then it was called, originally it was called Tool and Die, right? Okay. Tool and Die Association. Then they changed it to TMA. Now it's still TMA, but now it's
Tool Technology and Manufacturing Association, right? Yes.
So, 1 second. So I went over there and they were looking for some instructors, and I talked to the director of education at the time, and this was like in August, September, because I went through the whole program. So I liked it, okay? And I went through 4 years of it, plus I went through another 2 years for engineering at like design, engineering, mechanical, and on the board. So I went through like 6 years of school from within TMA and some college and stuff like that. So I still liked it, and I still wanted to teach. So I went in there and said, opportunity. And so it was like in August, and so I talked to the guy. So, okay, yeah, you did some training with it. And again, there were some really good professors that were there, and that really uh, helped me understand about learning, right? So you have your different levels of learning. And what you really want to get up to is a higher cognitive level where you can get into problem solving. Because right now, when people go to school, unfortunately, and even on the online stuff and things of that nature, all you're doing is regurgitating answers. You're regurgitating information. And so I didn't want to teach like that. And I wanted them to be able to problem solve. Because really, in business, in anything in life, who are your best people? The ones that can solve the problems. Right?
Especially in mold making, that's pretty much what all you guys and gals do, is problem solve. Yes.
Right. They're the ones that are your most valuable people because they're going to help you solve the problem. So you want to train to that as well. So you want to make people think and understand that it's not, it's about the process. It's not about the answer. So that was when I got in there, that was really my motivation, was to teach the process and not just answers. Yeah. So anyways, like I said, I went in there in August. It was before the school year. And so the third year, the highest level instructor, this was like in the end of October, right? He decided, I don't want to do this anymore. So there was a class of like 20 students. And the director called me up and says, would you be interested in stepping into the class? Okay, right? Well, it's 3 hours a night. It's 3 hours a night, 2 nights a week. Goes on from September until like April-ish. Almost a regular school year. So that's a lot of time. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So, he said, this is where we're at in the book. And there really isn't a whole lot today. So you pretty much have to come up with your own problems and curriculums. And again, this is the third year advanced mold making class. That's what I was teaching. Man, I'm busting my butt, right? I'm going through all this thing for the first night, and man, I was thinking that for 3 hours, I must have been sitting at my kitchen table and my desk for like 9 hours, right? Just to do this class, right?
Wow.
I got it. This is great, right? This is going to be good. And I get in there, and it goes very smooth. We do the problems, right? All the preparation. And then I realized that, oh, crap. I got another class in 2 days that I got to prepare for.
So, it's ongoing, Don.
Oh, yeah. So it takes quite a bit of time. But anyways, using that, again, it's all about preparation, just like in anything that you do. But the whole thing was, how do you, teach to people that not necessarily, and again, this is a different time. This was the 80s, not a whole lot different than it is today in the school systems, that, a lot of the schools and high schools and stuff like that. Another important thing that this guy told me at that point in time is that males are visual learners.
Okay.
Females can read text and comprehend. So it's the comprehension portion. Males are more proficient, you can look it up, are at visuals. That's why when we get something to put together, we'll take out the print, right? Or we'll take out the assembly instruction. I'm not reading the words, I'm looking at the pictures because that's my process, right?
Yes.
That's what I learn. And, same thing with design. It's understanding how the people learn. Generally, what happens is the way that you were taught when you were in school, high school, college, whatever, with a calculator or pen and pencil. Like when I design, I'll sketch first. I'll sketch on a piece of paper because that's the way I was trained. That's the way that's the way my brain works, right? I was programmed to do that with my hands and pencils. Now the younger kids today, and the engineers that go into school, they can do it right in 3D, and that's great because that's how they were trained. So that's the key. That's the key point. How you were trained to do it is going to take you, and that's how you learn. That's how you're programmed to learn. And that's what the little kids in school are. It's not about what they learn. It's about the process of them being programmed of how you learn.
Yes.
That's really what they're learning. It's how you learn. When you get up in the later years in high school, mostly into college now you get into the synthesis aspect of it, where you're able to take all of these bits of information and process out a solution to that problem. So that's a higher level. So taking that with you, that's really where, when you train and when I teach people, I want to take them to that process where you have to think about, I'm not going to give you the answer. You're going to have to tell me what the answer is.
Yes, I like
how
that.
you got that answer.
Yeah. So you can truly, that proves that you truly understand a concept.
Right.
Yeah.
So now when I, taking that principle into the tool shop, when I would go and provide them with, we quote the job, we're awarded the program. Now it's not just a matter of writing things down and do this. I want you to think about this, or I want you, in some cases, if we're a little bit slow or things like that as far as engineering, you're going to help me quote, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You think about this now. So it's productive because you're learning something, right? You're gonna do all of that, and then we're gonna talk about it, okay? And you're gonna make sure that tell me what I said, and then kind of repeat it.
Yeah.
Right? So going through the process,
Yeah.
how are we gonna do it? And it's just logical thinking, and that's where you get into the project planning nowadays. Is that it's just it's sequential, right? Don't look at the big picture. Break it down into individual steps, and it becomes much clearer. And that's what I used to tell them all the time. Don't worry about all of that.
Don't hear it. That could be overwhelming.
Don't worry about what's going to happen 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
Worry about what's in front of you now, because if you don't worry what's in front of you now, you're never going to get to that 2 weeks.
That's a life lesson in general, period, even outside of the shop environment, right? Like if you get overwhelmed, you just stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It will be a barrier, and you won't grow that way or learn. So yes, break it down. Break it down.
So I mean that's a great way that I found to help people understand and make that and help them comprehend the concept that I'm trying to come across with. Right.
I love that synergy between that. So so now you teach them, you got them in the shop, you're training them. You have any advice on how, for this next generation, how are we retaining this next generation? You invest all that time in teaching and training, you got them. How do you keep them?
You have to challenge them. It's about a continual challenge. It's now you get the next, so you elevate, this person up to journeyman level, whatever it might be, and now you want to bring somebody else in, right?
Right.
Because now you've set the process, right? Another example of training that I set up at Graphic was the rawest kid had a basic talent, right? And they like computers and things of that nature. So what was the first machine that I put him on? Our most expensive machine, which was our electrode cell. Remember that, right?
Okay.
Because that was all process driven, and this is where it comes to become mold manufacturing and not mold building. It's a process, right? And I was told by one of the VPs at Rexam that we became good friends. I still communicate with him. Because he was saying, well, I'm going to teach you about business, and you're going to teach me about designing and building mold. Okay. So we got into these different discussions, and the first thing he says, anything that you do, anything can be defined in a process. And that comes down to the lean, right? Because you break it down into steps, and then you find the waste in the process. So mold building, right? So I put the first kid on the expensive electrode cell machine with the robots and the things are flying all, right? But it's so controlled and process driven, you really can't mess it up, because the only thing you can do is mess up part of the process by putting in a wrong number. You're not going to crash anything. You're not going to hurt the machine. It's just not going to go. Well, why didn't it go? You figure it out, right? What did you do wrong in the process? So now we have a very strict process of training, right? you do this, you do this, you do this. And now he gets an overview of the whole operation, because now each one of those operations within each department is pretty much process driven, right?
Yes.
Well, that becomes mold manufacturing. So what's going to manufacture is process driven. It's not driven by the individual, the mold maker, so to speak, the old culture. Not that there's anything wrong with the old culture. It's the older culture. Now, if we're going to get more, using our equipment instead of manual machines, now our money makers are allowed CNC, right? So we're going to translate through that, and we're going to develop the process. So the first thing that we do is that we train the people to the process. So now you go to the next step. How are you going to train them? Well, I want to run that machine. Okay, here's the process.
Here's the process.
Right. It's not you're going to take some things from the basics, right? And then you're going to expand on that. So it's all about that expansion, the ability to challenge the people, to let them fail.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where you're going to learn. As long as they don't get, number one, as long as nobody gets hurt. That's
true.
the most important.
Yeah.
And if it's a piece of steel, you know what? We'll make another one. We made the first one, we'll make another one.
It happens, yeah.
As long as you don't get hurt, that's fine. And, but we will identify what happened, because that's where you learn.
Yeah.
Right? Not, you go in school, you would go back, well, on your test. Here's another classic example. You got 10 questions, you got 3 wrong. Why are they wrong? Well, nobody tells you that. You just got them wrong. Well, that's what I'm going to learn.
Just check it out. Right. Why is that wrong? What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong in my process of solving that problem? Yeah, you're right.
So
very interesting.
It's all about the process. No matter what you do, anything can be defined in a process.
Yeah.
And you're going to find your error once you do your deep dive into the process.
Yeah.
And
all that is based on the right culture too. You can't even have that kind of a philosophy, unless you have the right environment for your employees, where they feel comfortable learning that way and failing and communicating with you that they failed and feeling they can speak up and give ideas and give feedback.
That's what lean manufacturing is.
Yeah.
That's what the lean methodology and mindset is that it's okay to fail, but we will find out what's wrong and we will correct the process. That's really it. So and then we will monitor it to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because if it happens again or repeatedly, with a bunch of different people, then there's something about the way that we communicated the process.
Yeah, it shows it's a symptom of a bigger problem at that point, right? If that keeps happening.
Not everybody bad. There's something wrong with the process then, because nobody gets it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why you have to look deep down at yourself too, to say that, what am I doing wrong, possibly, that you don't understand this?
Yeah, it's all connected. So do you think, when you look at the future of mold making, mold manufacturing, do you see a shift in even what the role will be in that position? Do you see what they're called being called something else anymore?
I mean, a mold maker?
Yeah, a mold maker, a mold builder. What is your take on that?
Personally, I would have loved to call them team members. Everybody's a team member. We're all part of the same team. You're on this team building this project here or whatever. Everybody's, and then you're going to, it's just like, again, go back to a football team. You got a starter, you got your second string, you got your taxi squad, you got your, people coming up in the ranks, whatever you want to call it, in the minor leagues. It's the same thing. You're going to have your you're going to have your stars, you're going to have your, and then because you have a process, if you know what the process is, now you're going to go out and find, just like on a football team, you're going to go out and find people that will fit to your process and to your culture.
Yes.
You're just not going to take anybody, but you're going to see it's not their ability to necessarily operate a piece of equipment. It's their ability, in my mind, to be part of the team and the willingness to learn to that process.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be your next superstar. So that's where millennials come in, because that's what they want.
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, the goal should be to build teams, build a team, because that word itself just means so much. You know, that is better. That's collaboration and communication. It's coming together for the common goal. So I do like that. We're all team members within this world of making products. Basically, a mold is a product too. You know, I mean, it's a critical product to make other things. So I like the team approach. So Don, we could talk forever. We went past what I normally, it's probably going to be a two-parter at this point, but we need to wrap this up. So I want to thank you for your time today and sharing all your insight out there. Again, there's so much more we can talk about. Maybe we'll do it again at some later point and continue on different types of topics. But again, thank you for your time, Don. And for everybody out there watching, just remember, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com.